There once was a man named Bojack, who was a galactic pirate. He had fame, power, and wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Okay, I'm done with this joke. Hello, everybody. Tyrone the God 3 here, and I am back. Sorry it took a while to get back to the reviews of the Dragon Ball Z movies. It's just, I've been busy for a while, and I was working on that big project, which was the Mario Generations review. Also, the internet's been kind of wonky, and, I had to get that situated. But with that said, time to get back into the reviews. This review is movie 9 of the Dragon Ball Z movies. This movie is called Dragon Ball Z Bojack Unbound. So, basically, in the timeline, this movie basically happens right after the Cell games. I mean, like a few months after the Cell games have passed. So, right after Gohan beats Cell, it's nowhere in particular in the timeline that's confusing, which is good. It's good to have a movie that stays within the confines of the main timeline. There's no obscurities. Although there is one thing that throws things off balance. It doesn't knock anything away from the main timeline, but it is fun to note that in the tournament, Future Trunks is in this movie. However, he had already went back to his own timeline and killed Android 17, 18, and Imperfect Cell, Stage 1. He killed all of those villains and then ended up coming back to the main timeline to visit. So he's here temporarily, but yeah, it's only because he visited this timeline. He didn't, he didn't choose to stay. This took place after the Cell saga, but after Trunks did that. So with all of that said, let's get into the review. Basically, the movie begins with a tournament going on. There's a tournament going on in order to decide the galaxy's strongest. Before all of this happens, however, we see a clip of Bojack and the rest of his villains, but we just see silhouettes of them as they're headed towards Earth. Meanwhile, we cut to the tournament scene where everybody is gathered up and they're all, excited for this little tournament. This is called the Galactic Tournament because it's way higher than the World Tournament. First of all, there's way more competitors entering this, and it's a shit ton of audience members watching every area of the fight. Because this tournament is taking place not just in a simple ring like most tournaments, it's taking place in large vicinity areas all around the island. Yeah, because they're on an island when this tournament takes place. And basically, these guys are serving as actors because Hercule has hired these guys as actors, in which these really strong fighters are supposed to be aliens, quote unquote. And this is all because this guy, Mr. Millionaire, that's his name, has a son, and the son wants to see aliens. So he wants to see aliens fight Hercule, and Hercule's in the tournament as well. But he's being in the tournament as the expedition match champion that you fight at the very end of the tournament. So while this is being explained, basically the rules and how everything will go, each of the Z Warriors are clearly interested in this tournament and decide to enter as well. The Z Warriors in this movie are listing from Yamcha, Tien, which haven't made a movie appearance in a while, Piccolo, Krillin, and then Vegeta does not join the tournament, oddly. He's actually watching the tournament from television back home at Capsule Corp. Trunks, who decided to come back from his timeline after defeating the androids in Cell, and of course Gohan. Goku, of course, can't join this tournament because he got killed by second form Cell after the explosion during the Cell games. So instead, he just chose to be one of the tournament spectators in the other world while watching this tournament on TV with Bubbles, Gregory, and King Kai. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, Yamcha actually loses his preliminary round by not paying any attention and falling off this giant tower into the water. Tien, Krillin, Piccolo, Trunks, and Gohan actually make it past their first round and go into the second round of the tournament. While this is happening, each of the fighters are pit up in a certain section this time. So there's tons of fighters in each different section, but they're trying to narrow it down to the last, I think, 8? Or I want to say 4 or whatever. Yeah, I think they're trying to narrow it down to the final 4. Anyway, Krillin ends up having to be in the same block as Piccolo, and he gets really nervous about that. Then Trunks and Tien are in the same block, and while they're knocking out most of the easy human-like competitors, they end up having to fight each other. And Tien actually does a pretty good job in this fight against Trunks. It isn't until Trunks turns Super Saiyan that Tien ends up getting beat. So that gives us a nice little scale of where Tien is power-wise, I guess. So, which kind of sucks to see Tien get beat by so easily, but it's good to see that it takes Trunks all the way up to Super Saiyan in order to beat him, when you also consider how much stronger Trunks has gotten via the whole hyperbolic time chamber training, so Tien isn't too far behind. But yeah, Tien ends up losing the second round, with Trunks expanding and going further. Gohan wins his block, and then this sumo wrestler ends up advancing in his block by comedically pushing the rest of the fighters in his block off the ring and into the water. Meanwhile, Krillin has knocked out everybody as well as Piccolo in their block, and they have to fight against each other. Krillin fights off against Piccolo, but Piccolo's not taking the fight seriously at all, and Krillin almost comedically falls off the ring even though he can fly, which is weird. But Piccolo basically quits. Yeah, he no longer wants to be in the tournament anymore, and he just up and quits because he feels it's not a challenge for him, which is weird because Trunks and Gohan are in the tournament as well. So, yeah, there you go. So the remaining fighters are the sumo wrestler, Krillin, Gohan, and Trunks. And Chi-Chi and Bulma get into a comedic argument over, who would win the tournament, while Bulma's basically saying it's Trunks and Chi-Chi's saying that it's Gohan, and they both end up getting into an argument with each other, which we won't be able to see again until the fight between Goten and Kid Trunks in the Junior Division in the Majin Buu saga. Anyway, while Hercule discovers that almost everybody who made it into the finals was involved in the Cell games, Hercule gets scared and doesn't want to take part in the tournament anymore and tries to run away. He actually goes off as to say he has a stomach ache and tries to run off that way, and then he tries to escape to the bathroom with the press and the news and all of them trying to find out where Hercule is. And they even corner him in the bathroom, and he tries to figure out how the hell he's gonna get out. He ends up taking the sewer pipelines and then trying to leave the island that way. But it turns out the part of the island that he's trying to go on gets drifted away via the boats. And Hercule learns that the tournament's going to take place on a different island. Meanwhile, the announcer explains the rules of the tournament and states that each of the fighters will be fighting one of the galactic fighters that have been hired in order to fight the rest of the fighters, and once they defeat them, it'll be an all-out race to see who can make it into the pod to fight off against Hercule, or Mr. Satan, if you're from Japan. So, Krillin feels he has an advantage if it's a race because, of all of his distracting moves like Solar Flare and shit like that. They go into each of the pods, and each of the pods leads them to different fighting zones. Trunks is led to this beautiful meadow/lake area. Gohan's teleported to this weird child toy room, whatever. Krillin's teleported to this volcanic lava-based area, and then the sumo wrestler is transported to the desert. Now, all is well and things are going great until they finally make it to their destinations, and one of the galactic fighters sees the sumo wrestler, and the sumo wrestler tries to fight him, but the galactic fighter is taking the fight way too seriously, chokes out the sumo wrestler, and kills him. This gets Yamcha and Tien's attention. Uncomedically, Master Roshi is in the top of a flagpole looking down, trying to look at women to hang out and eat food, and he's flirting with them, and he's creeping the women out. That's funny. Anyway, while that's happening, Tien and Yamcha go in and go to see what's going on. Hercule learns about the situation and the fact that people are dying, and nobody is approving of this, the death of all of the sumo wrestler, because this is supposed to be a tournament, and that's terrible sportsmanship. So everybody gets scared, and they notice that these aren't the galactic fighters that were hired to, be in the tournament. So Yamcha and Tien actually learned that the galactic fighters that were hired in costume and makeup were killed by these new fighters that have taken their place. Meanwhile, Trunks ends up fighting one of them, and he notices that this guy has taken the fight way too seriously and that he could have been killed. So Trunks ends up fighting him full force, turning Super Saiyan while fighting off against this guy. I think the guy's name was Goki or whatever, or Kugo or something like that. But he fights off against him, and the two are basically evenly matched until Trunks turns Super Saiyan. Then he transforms himself, and they're evenly matched again. Trunks winds up knocking him out with one punch, and while he beats him, all's well and said and done. But then Bojack appears and knocks Trunks in for a loop. Meanwhile, we cut to Krillin's fight in the volcanic area. He learns that one of the fighters is Zongo. He still thinks it's the galactic fighters from that were hired. Little does he know it's actually Bojack's henchmen. So Krillin is rather infatuated with Zonga and how pretty she is. But Krillin comedically gets knocked out because, he's all blushing. But then he gets beat up real fast and quickly disposed of. Not killed, but he is knocked out. So then afterwards, Gohan ends up fighting one of them, and I think his name is Beto, the one with the weird turban wrap around his head. And the guy ends up using like these cool little threads to ensnare Gohan and drain away at his energy. But then when all of that is done, Gohan ends up getting the reveal that Bojack's the one that was causing all this mess, because Piccolo ends up saving him at last minute. But, oh no, my fault. Piccolo doesn't come in at that early. Excuse me. Tien and Yamcha come in and say that, hey, you guys were the ones that killed the original galactic fighters that were supposed to be in this tournament. We won't let you get away with this. And then they end up trying to fight Bojack himself, and the henchmen quickly knock out Yamcha, Tien, and they're in the pile along with Krillin. So Gohan tries to fight off against the henchman himself, and Trunks joins in the fray as well. And while that's all happening and they're each fighting against against Bojack's henchmen, Bojack himself ends up joining in the fight as well, making it pretty uneven for Gohan while he's on Super Saiyan fighting off against two of his henchmen and himself, while Trunks is fighting off against one of the henchmen. Trunks ends up getting caught in the weird psycho threads or whatever. The psycho threads, and his energy starts getting drained. While that's happening, Gohan ends up getting beat up, and it looks like it's going to be all over for him. But Piccolo shows up in the fight as well and helps cure the others. While Piccolo tries to fight Bojack himself, he ends up getting his ass whooped, and Gohan tries to fight off against the henchmen while Trunks is still struggling against the other two henchmen. It's there that we cut to Vegeta, because Vegeta actually knew that Trunks got knocked out and could sense his energy. Either he could sense his energy, or they're trying to make Vegeta more of a father figure because he notices something's wrong and quickly grabs Trunks' sword. He joins up in the fight as well, gives Trunks his sword, and then they're more than equipped to fight off against the rest of Bojack's henchmen. Vegeta himself goes off to fight against Bojack as well. This movie is very weird for Vegeta, considering the fact that he was really depressed, because Trunks states that Vegeta swore never to fight again after the Cell games, and now he's here helping everybody else out. It's a weird personality change. Anyways, afterwards, Gohan's fighting off against the henchmen. Piccolo's knocked out, unfortunately, because he tried to fight Bojack himself. Vegeta's fighting off against Bojack to the best of his ability, which pushes Bojack to transform into his transformation stage, which there's no real name for it. It's just he turns green and his hair is orange, which is what the other henchmen can do as well, except for Beto and Zonga, apparently. Anyway, after all that said and done, Gohan's still getting his ass whooped by the henchmen, and then Bojack ends up beating Vegeta. So now Gohan's all by himself. Meanwhile, we cut to Hercule, and Hercule ends up finally getting found by one of the reporters, and ends up getting pulled in and pushed into the pod uncomfortably and comedically. The pod slams down and shoots off, and Hercule's gone. Meanwhile, Gohan's getting his ass whooped by all the henchmen, plus Bojack himself, and Bojack even goes as far as to start crushing the life out of Gohan, to the point where he's almost knocked out. Gohan goes normal state and is about to get crushed to death, but then Hercule's pod ends up shooting in out of nowhere, startling Bojack and the henchmen. Bojack blows up the freaking pod, and Hercule comedically falls out and falls through the floor, but Gohan was able to be free for that moment. Gohan goes in for round 3, I guess, of fighting off against the henchmen and gets his ass whooped again, with the Z Warriors unable to do anything this time because they're all knocked out. So it's a while of just Gohan getting his ass whooped by 3 henchmen plus Bojack himself. Goku gets upset and feels that Gohan needs to push his anger even further to show off the same power he used against Cell. Things are not looking good for Gohan at all, and Bojack's henchmen are pretty much won this. I mean, Bojack got Gohan in another hold this time, and Gohan's about to die and get the life literally crushed out of him again. Only this time I think Bojack grabs his head and he's about to squeeze him apart. Goku completely disobeys the rules, instant transmissions out of Otherworld for a split second, punches Bojack right in the face, grabs Gohan, places him down, and says that Gohan needs to use the anger that's deep within his inside of his body in order to release himself and destroy Bojack and the others and save the planet. When Goku goes away, Gohan learns what Goku's talking about and is touched and is more encouraged to keep the fight going. So when things look bad, Gohan ends up unlocking his inner rage out of all the death and destruction Bojack and his henchmen have caused and ends up transforming Super Saiyan 2. It's at this point that Bojack's henchmen try to fly in and fight off against Gohan, but Gohan knocks 2 of the henchmen out literally with 1 hit. And the Psycho Strand, threads, whatever, can't hold Gohan anymore. He's too powerful and they end up breaking. So Gohan knocks out one of the henchmen and Beto, with the other henchman, I can't remember the second henchman. He ends up beating them literally with 1 punch and 1 kick. He heads towards Bojack and Zonga's about to fight off against Gohan. Now the whole movie would be very generic if it weren't for this moment in which we learn a lot about Bojack's character. Bojack fucking pushes Zonga towards Gohan, blasts Zonga in the back, and then does a sneak attack on Gohan so that he can get behind him and hit him from there. Now, it was unsuccessful because Gohan's still standing and he's fine, but it shows how fucked up Bojack is as a villain and makes his character a little bit better. It proves that he's willing to do anything to get an advantage in a fight, even if it means sacrificing one of his own. And I respect that in a villain. So meanwhile, it's an all-out standoff between Bojack and Gohan. Gohan does the Super Kamehameha, and Bojack uses some move called Galactic Tyrant Blast or whatever. It's called something weird in Tenkaichi's 2, 3, and Raging Blast 2. Anyway, he launches this huge greenish beam, and Gohan launches Super Kamehameha, and the 2 blasts are even and they blow up. But then Bojack and Gohan use that explosion as an opening to punch each other. Gohan turns out fine, but Bojack ends up getting a hole punched into his entire body, and he is completely decimated, and he's dead. And that's pretty much it. Once that's all over, we cut down to the infirmary or the hospital, wherever you want to call it, where Gohan and the others are finally healed up, and they learn in the newspaper that Hercule's the one that saved everybody from Bojack, and they're like, we're gonna let Hercule take this, and Gohan's like, technically he did help save me by blasting out of that pod, or else I would have got crushed to death. And then everybody comedically laughs about Hercule and makes fun of him, says his mustache is fake, and it was funny, and everybody's laughing about it, and that's pretty much the end of the movie, and Goku's very proud of Gohan for saving the world. And that is pretty much it. Now, how I feel about the movie. Well, here's the thing. I'm on the mix with Bojack Unbound. I like and I forgot to mention that King Kai explains how Bojack showed up in the first place. King Kai basically explains that Bojack appeared on planet Earth because when Goku had instant transmission second form Cell to King Kai's planet, Bojack Bojack was in deep inside the planet being sealed up. Him and his henchmen are sealed up thanks to all of the Kais coming together and sealing them up using their respective planets. And when Goku brought second form Cell there and it blew up King Kai's planet, it broke the seal in which Bojack was, as the title states, unbound. Now, the thing about this movie, it does reveal some backstory on King Kai and the others, but there's no flashback to aid it, so it's just, but we gotta take King Kai's word for it, which I have no problem doing. I wish there would have been a flashback showing the Kais, like, in their earlier stages, fighting off against Bojack, because Bojack apparently was a galactic pirate who caused terror around the entire universe. Now, this movie is very samey, in the sense that it's basically the same plot as Perfect Cell's plot, just, with some obvious changes. Think about it. There's a tournament involved. Gohan's the main character. He turns Super Saiyan to end it all. He gets his ass whooped when he's in Super Saiyan 1. He literally beats the henchman with one punch once he enters Super Saiyan 2. And it's also odd how Bojack knows who Goku is, even though him and Goku have never met face to face until, Goku punches him in his face. But this movie feels very generic. And it's sad because, the only thing saving this movie from being, horrible, I guess, is that Bojack as a villain is pretty cool. Just for that one scene alone where he pushes Zonga and blasts her in the back. That's a cool scene because it shows how willing he is to get ahead. It shows that he's a pirate, he fights dirty. But other than that, I hate to say it, I would not put this would actually probably be on the borderline of one of my least favorite movies. Almost there. It wouldn't be on my top 5 least favorites, but it's not exactly a movie I would put on the top 5 of my favorites either. This movie is very in between because there's not really much to it. Yeah, we get some backstory on King Kai. Yeah, we learn that Bojack is a jackass, but so we should call him Bojack-ass, but there's nothing else this movie has to provide. And hell, if you're a big fan of watching the heroes fight against the villains, you're in for huge disappointment in this movie because Gohan's the one that comes out on top, and that's only towards the end, the last 5 minutes of the movie where he turns Super Saiyan 2. The most of the movie is the Z Warriors getting their asses whooped for literally an hour. And it's not even by the main villain, it's by the henchmen. The main villain puts a hand in on whooping their asses as well, but it's mostly just the Z Warriors get their asses whooped for an hour. That's what the movie is. It's Yamcha, Tien, you get to see them again after so long. Too bad they don't mean anything. Krillin gets knocked out literally within 20 minutes of the movie. Piccolo doesn't stand a chance against Bojack at all. He ends up getting his ass whooped. Vegeta appears, cool, but he gets his ass whooped as well. Trunks gets his ass whooped as well. None of them, if you're gonna put henchmen, at least help have the henchmen get killed by the other characters. I understand that Gohan has to be the main character here and beat Bojack, so I see no reason why Trunks, Vegeta, and Piccolo couldn't beat the other henchmen. I guess they wanted to show off how strong Super Saiyan 2 is compared to the other characters, but at the same time, it really makes the Z Warriors look pathetic in this movie. I don't like seeing a movie where the Z Warriors get their asses handed to them so quickly. I mean, older movies do a good job of having the Z Fighters at least stand a chance. Hell, even Super Android 13, Vegeta and Trunks defeat Android 14 and 15, while Goku almost defeats 13 until, he transforms. Then, yeah. I'm just saying, and then hell, Piccolo beats a large sum of henchmen in the Cooler movie, so why have this? It was too much of just the Z Warriors getting beat, and that was offsetting to me. It didn't make for a good movie for me because of that. It's a decent movie. That's all I got to say. The movie's decent, and it gives some good, it's a nice touch to see a character other than Goku be the one to beat the main villain. So I always love things like that. Gohan's become the victor in this movie and the next movie, and he was the victor in Dead Zone. So it's good to see that Gohan gets his limelight, I guess. But at the same time, still, like, Jesus. Now, how do I feel about Goku appearing and to help save the day? I don't. Because, yeah, he broke the rules, but I think Goku saved the world so many times, I think King Yama would let him do that one. So, who cares? I don't. I didn't make a big fuss out of it. It wasn't anything that I went, that's bullshit with. I can appreciate it. It's nothing I would complain about, is what I'm saying. The comedic moments in this movie are actually pretty decent, though. It's fun to see, like, what Krillin says in the movie. I like seeing the Hercule stuff or Mr. Satan stuff. It's okay, but the movie as a whole, I think having a tournament like this was a pretty unique idea. It's just a shame it had to go down like this. Other than that, like I said, this movie's pretty medium to me. Like, it's not terrific, but it's not horrible. We're gonna start getting into my least favorite my two least favorite movies after this review anyway. I'm looking forward to that. But would I recommend it? Not. It wouldn't be the first on my recommendation list. I'd say watch a few other movies first before you watch this one, because this movie did Trunks some justice, I will say that. Like, Trunks at least got to beat a henchman, for Christ's sakes. So if you're a Trunks fan, you'll rather enjoy it to a degree until he got his ass whooped. But I wouldn't recommend this movie perfectly. Like, I'd recommend you watch a few other Dragon Ball Z movies before you watch this one, because this movie was a little upsetting. If you're a fan of watching the Z Warriors actually win as a team, then you're in for some disappointment, because Gohan's the only one who's competent in this movie, and that's only after Goku gives him the pep talk to turn Super Saiyan 2. So, yeah. But other than that, I say this movie's alright. It's alright. And that's all I can say, unfortunately. Even the review for this is going to be a little less than 30 minutes, because I'm literally just rambling at this point. But overall, give it a look-see after you've watched a few other DBZ movies. I wouldn't make this my first choice. With that said, the next movie we'll be doing is Dragon Ball Z Movie 10, Broly, Second Coming. Yeah, he's back, and he's badder than ever. And by badder, I mean the literal term worse. See y'all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3 out.